Hi, this is Rob Bowron with Sharp College Football. Today, we're going to talk about the Auburn Tigers, a team that every year seems to be coming in with both high expectations and the audio is fine to start, so let's cross our fingers. Why not? But Auburn is a team that always seems to come in with fairly high expectations, but always seems to have a very tough schedule too. And I think that the schedule tends to leave people, and also having Alabama be your rival, and Alabama being on an epic heater under Nick Saban. Auburn is a real tough job, and I don't want to take away. I think Gus Malzahn has done just an incredible job with the Auburn Tigers, keeping them consistently very good, occasionally great. A team that really in the toughest division and the toughest conference in college football is consistently a tough out. And we should not take away, and I think we tried to say this and emphasize this about Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, that simply being very good in college football is incredibly hard. And Gus Malzahn has been consistently and often better in the advanced stats than the record has shown, because it's a lot easier in the SEC West, you could argue, to be very good in advanced stats and struggle in the record. So Auburn's a team that I think last year was a little bit of a surprise for some people. We had them projected fairly highly coming into the season. They ended up having an incredible defense last year. The offense was a bit of a disappointment, to put it mildly. But there's some changes coming in. Bo Nix has another year under his belt. But the flip side of it too is that you lose some of the your best players that you had on the defensive line. There's going to be some questions around this Auburn team, but as I said, they do a really good job developing talent, developing players. They don't, their recruiting's pretty good. Their scheme, has consistently been pretty good. So and like I said, occasionally they can really catch fire and be great. And I think a lot of college football, programs would absolutely take that. For Malzahn, the tough thing is that his in-state comparison, his neighbor, the person that Auburn fans are most often comparing to, that are tired of getting, they're tired of listening to Alabama fans at work and at church and at life, rubbing it in their faces. For Auburn fans, and for Gus Malzahn, there's always this sort of comparison against what Saban is doing, and that's a really tough road to hoe. So you almost feel like Malzahn is sort of perpetually kind of on and off the hot seat. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Auburn's going to do a ton better than Malzahn's doing right now with the stuff. I mean, it is, as we said with Kelly. I mean, the danger is you could also hire somebody. Hires matter a lot in college football. People get in their head that what they see right now is forever, right? I mean, people forget that, Alabama hired Nick Saban, but they also hired Mike Shula, and it's easy to, it's just as easy to strike out and have it not work out. So I think that, I want to emphasize, I really do think Malzahn's done a good job. Auburn should really think hard, barring some epic collapse one of these years, about, moving along from him, but for just, to think about what you really might get out of it and where you could potentially end up. So, we're generally a little bit of Gus Malzahn fans around here for the most part. I mean, I think he does a good job and a very hard job, but they've been really consistent. So we have them projected at 10. They were at number 10 last season, and they were at number 9 in 2018. As we said, I mean, Malzahn's consistently delivering a top 10 team in advanced stats, which I would absolutely argue is the better measure than record. Don't get me wrong, college football fans, it's way more fun to win the games and then be able to rub that in people's faces than we're better in beta rank or S&P Plus or the FEI. Little less. It's got a little less oomph to it, but at the same time, I think it's more relevant if you really are trying to get into the nuts and bolts of football. So they've also done a really good job, like with an eye on the small details. Number 13 in special teams last season. They don't have an overwhelming amount of production coming back this season. They're at number 77 in returning production. But that does, it makes it sound like they're way down there. They have 61% of their production coming back from last year's squad. They're at 14 in recruiting. You could argue that, for Malzahn and company, to make up ground and really catch Alabama, or LSU or something along those lines. Like Auburn, they might have to. They might have to step it up in recruiting more than anywhere else. That I really don't know that they're going to get a lot better than in some ways than where they're doing right now. With their on the field production and developing players, they might have to step it up a little bit in recruiting to try to catch up in the SEC West. That's sort of easier said than done, of course. But this is, of course, Gus Malzahn. This is a really terrific picture of Gus Malzahn, given the fist bump. But let's get in. Let's dive into the numbers for this Auburn team and get in, because I think last season in particular, Bo Nix was a lot better thought of by people that don't watch a lot of tape and people that don't run advanced stats models, I guess you could say, because that Auburn offense was beloved, and Bo Nix were sort of beloved, when SEC, freshman or newcomer of the year, which should have gone to Derek Stingley, hands down. But the checking the audio again. All right, so Auburn last season on offense rated all the way down at 26. That's kind of like, you're closing in on being a middling Power 5 offense at that level. Number 22 in drive efficiency. It's an all right number. Nothing to hang your hat on there. Explosive drives at 27. Really need to work on being more explosive. 29 in play efficiency, just controlling for, all of these metrics are controlling for opponent field position. That play efficiency number is not great at 29. Really what crushed them more than anything, though, was their negative drives number at 55. Too many 3-and-outs, too many turnovers, too many bad decisions, not enough execution. A far better, and really too, it was surprising to see Bo Nix win that award and be thought of so highly, because this offense was far better running the ball than they were passing the ball. They were a very bad Power 5 passing offense. 21 in effective rush, 64 in effective pass. They have a lot of work to do on this side of the ball, without a doubt. So there's a little bit of a change. They're bringing in Chad Morris, who had been the head coach at Arkansas, and before that, the head coach at SMU, and before that, the offensive coordinator at Clemson. So going back, he had a really interesting, when we were going back and looking, I'm going to check the audio one more time. All right, we're good. Just cross the, every time I say I think I found it, and then it hasn't, I don't know. At some point I'm either going to find it or, I don't know, I'm going to give up and just, I don't know what I would do. It's driving me bonkers, but as I'm sure anybody that has the temerity to keep watching these. But for Morris, his last season in 2014 as the offensive coordinator at Clemson, they really fell off a cliff. They were at 72 in 2014. Now I went back and that was a little bit of a rough ride for them. That was before Deshaun Watson really stepped in and took over. They had some injuries that year. The year before, in 2013, they were the number 13 offense overall under Morris. He had some pretty good offenses at SMU, ranking in the 40s in beta rank in his time there. His time at Arkansas was a disaster. But he and Malzahn have some familiarity with each other. I expect that the offense should pick up again. With Morris calling the plays and Malzahn being able to focus on being the head coach. But there's no lack of offensive acumen here. But a lot of what really, Malzahn had sort of made his name on, offensively, which was, that, it was a run first spread, using dual threat quarterbacks, using tempo. almost no one uses tempo anymore. I mean, and for a reason. I mean, it's far more valuable to be able to set, put men in motion, expose what the defense is, as much as what you can as, what the defense is running, and then audible. And, that's what you see more often now is that, offenses are trying to get a read on the defense and then audible at the line of scrimmage. The pace of play has decreased. And I actually, once I find some time, I'm going to post, I have run all the analysis on tempo in college football. And it's not, I mean, there have been studies on this before. I have some pretty extensive, both looking at just raw stats as well as running through some models on tempo. But tempo doesn't matter in college football, but as tempo has actually declined in college football, just in raw metrics before you run any controls, points have actually also gone up. So tempo is not the driving force of the increase in points over the last few years. So Malzahn and Morris need to find a little more to hang their hat on, coming into this year in particular. And I think that they can. Where they struggled last season, really badly, was that they were at 101. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to point out the offense was at 13 in 2018. So this is a significant step. I mean, they were knocking on the door of the top 10 in 2018. Big step back with Nix at QB in 2019. Nix graded out at 101 in Pro Football Focus's QB grades. Really just a lot of questionable throws. More turnover worthy throws than big time throws as Pro Football Focus grades them out. Significant accuracy issues. Nix has a lot of work to do coming into this year. I mean, without a doubt. I don't know that you would have him, in the top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC coming in this year. He's really got to take a step forward and deliver for them, coming into this year. If not, then, Auburn, needs to be looking and looking for someone that can potentially come in and play, because that you can't have if you're Auburn, you're probably not expecting to have the defense be quite as good as it was last year. To really compete, the offense has to get significantly better. They have to get back to knocking on the top 10, if not being in the top 10. The way Nix played last season, and even, a stepwise progression, that you might expect is not going to get it done. Nix has to take a sophomore and junior leap, coming into this year, and be a lot better football player and quarterback. He was actually helped. Like, the offensive line was pretty good last season. Number 28 in Pro Football Focus's offensive line grades. And it's interesting because what they really excelled at was pass blocking, and they kept Nix clean for the most part. And it was really Nix holding the ball sometimes and not making good decisions that led to him getting more pressures than the offensive line really would have given up on their own. Where the offensive line struggled a little bit last season, and you wouldn't see it coming into, from the run grade here, but they struggled a little more in the run blocking. They have some work to do on that end coming in. So they're at number 76 overall, in returning production on the offensive line. On the offense in total. These are Bill Connolly's returning production numbers. They are, I would say that this offense, there's not an overwhelming amount coming back. You have something you could potentially build on with Nix there. There's definitely some good coaching and smart minds, in place. I like this Auburn offense to potentially rebound, but it really is going to pivot on how Nix plays. Like, he just has to get a lot better. I expect Morris to be there and do a good job with the offensive play calling. It is all going to, the fulcrum of this offense, any offense is going to be the quarterback, but the fulcrum of this Auburn offense and whether they are able to take a step forward and really meet this projection we have for them here it's going to depend on Bo Nix. So on the defensive side of the ball, man, this is a good defense last season. This is a really good defense last season. So they were at number 4 overall in beta rank, number 9 in drive efficiency. I mean, just they found a way to get off the field, not give up long drives. Number 2 in explosive drives. I mean, just excellent at not giving up big plays. A little worse at play efficiency. That's not it's of the 4 core, the core 4 beta rank metrics. It's the least important. It's not to say that it's unimportant, but you if you were going to rank in the top 2, you know, in any metric, you would pick explosive drives or drive efficiency, and then negative drives, and then play efficiency. So their negative drives number, again, that's great. You know, causing a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of turnovers, just really great job. And not a run pass, you know, big run pass split. Number 4 in effective rush, number 5 in effective pass. They've done a terrific job. Kevin Steele is the defensive coordinator for them. I had actually. It never ceases to amaze me. So like I was kind of going through and looking at the kind of in the early stages of last year, I was more than ready for Arizona to move on from Marcel Yates. And I was looking at some people that might potentially hit the market if their staff was let go. And I thought, oh, Malzahn is a little bit on the hot seat. You know, like if that staff was let go at Auburn, like you could easily pick up Kevin Steele and he'd be a great pickup for anyone. And I had somebody tweet at me, you know, going back to his time at Clemson when they got boat raced in the Orange Bowl. And I was like, that's like, I mean, like, this is the way college football fans' minds work, though, is like, regardless of the consistently good work someone does across many seasons, that you can track and, you know, in advanced stats, like, man, like everybody just remembers that one time they got dunked on by somebody, and that's it. Like they're written off in that person's mind forever and ever. Amen. But Steele's done a really good job, deserves a lot of credit for, you know, helping really keep this Auburn defense consistently in the top 10. They were at number 10 and 18. You know, they've done a terrific job developing players. I think they do an excellent job on the defensive line, particularly on their interior defensive linemen. Auburn just deserves a lot of credit for what they're able to do on this side of the ball. Even though I think people still think of this as like an offense first team, the defense has been there consistently. And last season, you know, the only part of this team that was really exceptional was the defense. So they're at 80 in returning production on this side of the ball. There's a little less coming back. I mean, Derek Brown in particular is gone. I still think Steele's going to put together a very good defense. They're not going to be in the top 5 with, you know, the losses that they have. However, you know, I think that they're going to be in that, you know, 10, 11, 12 range. Maybe, you know, if they really, you know, beat their projection, have some great players step in, you know, they could be in the, you know, 7, 8, 9 range too. So this side of the ball, I am pretty confident that you're not going to have a significant fall off on. I really like what Kevin Steele has been able to do with this defense. So let's look at the schedules, plural. So first you'll see the schedule, so the schedule that was had them, you know, with about, you know, what are we looking at here? We're looking at 8.03 wins overall, but only at about 4.5 wins in conference. It's that 4.5 wins in conference, you know, and that, you know, just over 8 wins overall. That is a reflection of having a very difficult schedule. And, you know, Auburn would come in again to another year with projecting as a top 10 team and having a really tough schedule to go against. So they don't, I'm really bummed that we don't get to see them take on North Carolina. I would really have liked to have seen, you know, the Auburn offense against a North Carolina defense that really does still need to take a step forward. You know, under Jay Bateman, the offense really took a step forward last season. The defense did not take as big of a leap forward. But get to see that North Carolina offense on the flip side of that with Phil Longo and Sam Howell against the Auburn defense with Kevin Steele. That would be a solid matchup. Really fun to watch, potentially. You know, as you go through that, I mean, like that's really the non-conference game you really would have been excited to see. I mean, I don't know, maybe you'd be excited to see them, you know, just absolutely blast UMass, but I am not. And Southern Miss doesn't project to be a particularly close game either. So I don't think we're missing much there. When we look at the schedule that is potentially, there's a really interesting game here to start out the season. You know, and I think a lot of people, you know, this game started out, it opened at 11 points. It's now down to 7. We had it at 6, as Auburn is the favorite at home. We really like Kentucky I think that Kentucky could still overperform their projection with Wilson coming back off the injury at QB, and Kentucky actually not running a wildcat offense with a running back at quarterback. I think that could really potentially open up. They bring back 4 offensive linemen from one of the best offensive lines in college football last year. Kentucky's a potential breakout candidate, and it really is our dark horse in the SEC East. So I would still have Auburn as a very slight favorite here, but I might even have it less than this, almost 6 points. I might have that at about 2 with Auburn at home. So then you get Georgia. Auburn and Georgia, the cross-division rivals. Of course, Georgia is quite good right now. That's at about 3.5. That seems about fair. I expect Georgia to rebound off of where they were last season, in particular with the change at offensive coordinator, because that offense just really went into a ditch last season. Auburn's going to be a big favorite in that game, and rightfully so. Auburn, they're still going to be rebuilding in Fayetteville. South Carolina, again, this game is won. So we have that as Auburn as an 84% win probability. They did luck out a little bit in not getting, they already had Kentucky on the schedule. They always have Georgia on the schedule, but not getting Florida and getting South Carolina and Tennessee. I think Tennessee's a little overrated by some people in the polls coming in right now. South Carolina, we expect to still potentially, by SEC standards, still struggle a little bit. So Auburn's got an 84% win probability against the Gamecocks, about 11.5 points. We have that one. Ole Miss, Auburn's, a little over 7 points as a favorite. I think that's about fair. Ole Miss, it depends. I do expect them they should be interesting this year. Particularly if Corral comes in at QB, as opposed to Plumlee, but it's going to take some doing, I think, to really get them going. LSU is they're all fascinating teams, right? Or interesting anyway, but we have this game as a toss up. I think that's pretty fair. LSU is really recruited well. They still have, a lot of the staff, that was there last year, but without Aranda, Joe Brady, a lot of his passing concepts are still there, but he wasn't calling all the plays last season. He was calling some of the plays last season. So I think for, this Auburn squad, against LSU, this could be an interesting matchup. We have it as, like I said, like a toss up at home. I think that's still pretty fair for where, Auburn and LSU are coming into the year. Mississippi State, this should be, again, like this feels about right, over a touchdown for Auburn here. They could be interesting with Costello at QB. It will be something to see, though. That offense really struggled under Moorhead. How much is Leach able to really, implement his concepts? And then 2, where does Zach Arnett have that Mississippi State defense? Are they really able to implement that San Diego State 3-3-5 effectively? Tennessee, this is one of the ones we have that was added on. So Auburn has a 78% win probability in that game, about 8 points. We have them as a favorite there. So it's that Tennessee game, at home, Auburn should win. There's a couple games in here that are in that range of not quite 10 points, roughly around 1 possession. Auburn does need to show up and make sure that they don't have an off night to avoid an upset in one of those games, because, there are still some really tough games here on the schedule. Like Alabama's our number 1 projected team coming into the season. If Alabama, really clicks on offense, which, is not... it's not guaranteed. I think Steve Sarkisian has done a terrific job with that Alabama offense, but it is going to require somebody being able to step in and, at least fill most of Tua's shoes at QB for them to be successful. I think that that's possible. I might have that this, game, it's a rivalry game. I might have this a little closer, even though it's, it's on the road. I might have this as 2 touchdowns right now for Alabama. It's, with where Auburn is, with production wise and the way Nick's played last season, I feel like as long as, Alabama's got it going reasonably well at QB, I think that they should be able to pull it off in this game. And, just avoid turnovers really. So A&M's an interesting one. A&M brings back a lot. They've done a great job recruiting. They've done a good job developing players. They're another team that, has been outperforming in advanced stats where their record is. We have, A&M projected to have a pretty good year this year at number 7. This game on the road, A&M is a slight favorite over Auburn at about 2.5 points. I think that's about right given, what the two teams are bringing back and the way they've recruited. If Fisher is able to get it going, it's got to start to show out really this year. So that puts Auburn, when we look at that, the old schedule had them about 4.5. This has them at about 6, a little over 6.09 wins, against that 10-game SEC slate. I think Auburn could be successful with that, and it could work. I don't want to, that would be, going through getting to that many wins. With the production losses that they've had, I think if they're able to do that, I think that's a solid season. If they can get to 7 wins, and that might require a little luck, also maybe beating the projection. I think you could potentially, I think that's a successful season too. It'll be interesting to see how we define success in whatever this college football season looks like. So let's go back and wrap it up here. And because this is where the audio has been going all sideways, is when we switch back over to this scene. I have no idea why that happens. It is just bonkers. It sounds good. We're gonna go. All right. As I've been doing this, I've been wrapping it around the mic stand. What a goober. All right. So, Auburn next year, what should you look for that will tell you that Auburn's going to outperform this number 10 projection? So what you really need to look for early is Nix really needs to get his head on straight. He needs to improve his accuracy. Not the easiest thing for a QB to do. Usually by the time you hit college, you either have it or you don't. But for Nix, he's got to make better decisions. You should see it in his reads. For Nix, you should not see him. And some of this is wide receivers too. This can be a really tough thing where you're often, the QB is holding the ball too long. But for Nix last year, it wasn't, the wide receivers that were letting him down. It was, Nix was just not playing very well. You need to see Nix making good decisions with the ball, not throwing, inaccurate balls, not throwing into coverage that he shouldn't be throwing into, finding the open man, making good decisions, and not letting him, the offensive line down by putting them in a position where pressure is really on him. So that's what you want to see on the offensive side of the ball. You'd like to see the offensive line be able to run block a little more effectively. That would also help Nix too. They were a pretty good running team last year. A lot of that was scheme and the run blocking, however, can continue to improve. If you can combine what Auburn does scheme-wise, running the ball, with a really dominant run blocking offensive line, then you could potentially be in, and this will really take pressure off Nix. You could be a top 10 rushing offense, which Auburn really, frankly, with the way Nix played last year, might need to lean into and do. So, on the defensive side of the ball, it's really, I think for them to, you're going to want to keep an eye on where they were in the defensive line, where they were in the secondary last season, coming off of some of the losses that they had last year. Are they able to hold their own, and be able to stop the run without having to bring down safeties, from the losses that they've had? Or are they not? Are they struggling? Are you having to bring down safeties into the box? Is that opening you up to potentially giving up big plays? Is Auburn able to fill the shoes of the guys that have moved on to the NFL? So I think they likely will. I don't expect huge production losses. They had some stars though last season, and that stars are, mileage may vary on replacing stars. We'll see if they're able to produce at that level. I'm pretty confident you're still going to have a very good defense run out there though by Kevin Steele. So when I don't know that I don't expect them. Unless somebody really breaks out to have a top 5 defense again, but it's in the realm of possibility. So that's the Auburn Tigers. I'm excited to see. I mean, I'm excited to see everybody. I'm excited to see this team and what they look like. What Nick's, if he's taken any step forward, and also, I mean, there's no more. I mean, the roller coaster on the on the plains is or of the plains, whatever I titled this, something along those lines, on or of. Is an apt title. I mean, Malzahn just rides the roller coaster of a fan base that just desperately wants to. Not only, I mean, in order to really stick it to Alabama, it's not enough just to beat them. Like, you got to get, like, as Auburn found out that year, Alabama ended up going and winning the national title. It's not enough just to beat them. Like, you really also got to make the playoff, and then, you really don't. You almost feel like if you're an Auburn fan, like, you really can't stick it to Alabama unless you bring home a national title that year. So, I mean, I think Auburn fans just desperately want to get there, and I don't blame them, given the difficult, the having to stare down the road at what Nick Saban has been doing. So I think, again, like, it will be interesting to see if Malzahn somehow ends up on the hot seat again after this year. I don't know that anybody's seat is going to be like broiling, given the financial situation that most of these universities are going to find themselves in. But if the SEC is able to get through this year and on to next, and we have a regular football season by the time that their new ESPN contract kicks in, then Auburn will have plenty of money to potentially buy out Gus Malzahn then, for sure. So I don't expect, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I feel like it's like every other year Malzahn's on the hot seat. So that's the Auburn Tigers. They're all, I mean, in the top 10, like, they're all a team to watch. We've hit and I say this, like, we've hit the top 10, like, on the Twitter previews, where we go through a lot of the charts that we have on each team in Beta Rank. We started out at 130. We started out at UMass, like a while ago, like all the way back in, I think, like, March or February, starting on these. We're closing in. Like, this is there are only 9 teams to go after this in preview, and I just could not be happier to be closing this out. So that also means we only have 9 more preview videos to go. So tomorrow we're going to do the LSU, no, not tomorrow, Monday, we're going to do the LSU Tigers, the defending national champions. And really, I mean, like, I'm not opposed. LSU was so good last year. You just give them another title this year. That offense was so much fun to watch. But you can find all the stats you just saw and a lot more at sharpcollegefootball.com. We have just oodles of data available for free, easy to sort through in Google Data Studio. Like, you should give it a look. I'm Rob Bowron. I'm the econometrician behind Beta Rank. I tweet out from @BetaRankFB. I also handle the tweets from @SharpCollegeFootball. We have a Pac-12 podcast at 12 Pack Radio. You can find all the back episodes of that podcast at sharpcollegefootball.com/12 Pack Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and we will see you again on Monday.